And so similarly, Srila Gurudev too. He's actually, many devotees are experiencing that he's more here now than he was before. Before, you all had to work all year to get the money to go see him in Kartik, or maybe a second time in Alachua, or maybe a second time in Badger. But that is not needed anymore, because you can all immediately, of course you were able to immediately turn to him before, but now there's no other choice to believe that we're able to turn to him at any moment. And that means that we can talk to him at any moment. Isha Prabhu once asked him, I think it was 2010, what are we going to do when you leave? So Srila Gurudev answered that just as you're asking me questions now, you could ask me questions after I so-called leave. And if you're surrendered to me, then I'll immediately answer directly in your heart, just as I'm answering now. But even if you're not so surrendered, still I will inspire in your heart the answer. So, in this way, he's there for us anytime, and also, even when we don't want him, he's there. There are many instances where Srila Gurudev showed that he was there when the devotees don't want him. Like, for example, in Hawaii once, a husband and wife came to take darshan of him, and he said, stop beating your wife. So the husband said, well, I know I used to beat my wife, but I don't do it anymore. So Gurudev said, I saw you, I was there. So it's a great opportunity for us to be very careful. I remember a lot of times he would say to the devotees who have businesses, this is my business, which means I'm watching how you're spending the money and how you're acting in your business. And I used to have a room in Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math on the top, on the rooftop. And once, when Srila Gurudev came to visit Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math, he came into my room and he said to me, this is my room. I couldn't understand what he meant because, of course, the whole mutt is his. But later on I understood when I did things wrong and he chastised me in a very terrible way, that he's there in my room all the time. And he knows what I'm doing, he knows what I'm talking about, knows what we're thinking as well. I just mentioned to the devotees in Trinidad a few days ago that when he was in Toulouse, France, in 1999, at a Harikatha festival, he was saying how the Shiksha Guru is so intimate, and if we can also have that intimate relationship with our Diksha Guru, feeling as others do about him as Shiksha Guru, that he's one heart, and that we can express our heart to him as a bosom friend, as a most bosom friend, without being afraid, and without having to have a feeling of awe and reverence. He said, just like when one is taking a shower, because he's by himself, he's not shy. So he can think of his Gurudev as one heart with him and not be shy to reveal anything to him. So Gurudev said, just like, suppose one disciple comes to me. One disciple comes to me, and I say to him, oh, how are you? And he says, oh, I'm doing fine. And then I say to him, oh, really? No problem? And then he says, no, no problem. He doesn't tell me that he has some lovers and some illicit lover relationships. So Gurudev said, because he didn't tell me, not even because he had it, But because he didn't tell me and he thought he could hide it from me, that problem will go in like a needle and out like an atom bomb and destroy one's bhakti. He said on another occasion in India that if you come to me and tell me about your lust, then I have the power to take it all away. But if you don't, if you think you can hide it, then it will become greater and greater and destroy your bhakti. Regarding Srila Gurudev's being able to be like a magician, he said himself, and it's also stated in a Harmonist article by Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragankeshwar Goswami Maharaj, that Guru was just like a magician. How so? Just like a magician may slice off the head of his son, and then put it in a box, and then put all kinds of swords through it. And then a few minutes later, the son will walk in through the side door. I think you all know the story of the husband and wife who had the two husband and wife magicians and their two sons who were magicians. You all know that? Who's no? Are you just saying that? So, in India there was a very, very famous husband and wife and two sons magicians. And they were so famous that even the king and queen and their ministers would come and watch the performance. So one day they did a performance before the king and queen and their associates, where the wife was walking on a tightrope, and she was carrying so many those Indian jugs, one on top of another, on her head. And they were doing so many other performances. So at the end of it, the queen gave her own personal, very, very valuable necklace to the mother. And then the two sons, young 9 or 10-year-olds, they started grabbing the necklace. I want it, mother. No, I want it. And then they both grabbed it, and they were both pulling at it. And they were getting more and more angry at each other, and they were both of equal strength. So simultaneously, they both pulled their swords out of their sheaths and sliced off each other's heads right on the stage. And the heads fell to the floor, and the bodies fell to the floor. And then the father became overwhelmed with grief. He sliced his head off. That splattered on the floor. And then the mother, you can imagine how she felt, and she did the same thing. And then a sweeper came and swept everything off the stage. So you can imagine how the king and queen and all their ministers felt, especially the queen, who totally blamed herself for the whole thing. And then the next day, the king and queen got a letter from the magician saying, "Thank you for the present that you gave on our first show, but you never gave any presents for our second show. Yes, we are alive, and if you don't believe us, you can come to such and such address and give us our second present. We're waiting." So they came, and the husband and wife and sons were all waiting for them to garland the king and queen. So if this is possible for ordinary people, then what to speak of the pure spiritual master, who's a self-realized soul, if he's really Guru, really bona fide Guru. As Narada Muni said to, as Vyasadeva said to Narada Muni, that you are just like the all-pervading air. Just as the air pervades everywhere, you, O Narada Muni, can pervade all souls, and you know what's going on in the depths of all souls. You can read everyone's mind. So there in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the pure devotee, by dint of his pure devotion to Krishna, other things happen as a side effect to that. That is, he gets all transcendental knowledge, where he knows everything past, present, and future, and he has all mystic powers. That is, the mystic powers of the greatest yogis. Yogis have powers like they can bring others under their control. They can become smaller than an atom, lighter than an atom rather, heavier than a planet. They can fly. Heavier than a planet, lighter than an atom. They can fly. And what else can they do? They can walk on water. Turn mercury to gold. Similarly, and more so, the spiritual master has more of those powers. Even Srila Gurudev gave an example of a smarta Brahmin who had some faith in God. And he went to a Buddhist university just so that he could learn about Buddhism so that he could defeat them. And so one day he defeated his Buddhist teacher who didn't believe in God, who thought that everything is zero. And so his classmates decided to kill him for offending their teacher. So they brought him up to the top, like the third story of the building, and they said, "So, we think that you're a Vaishnava and you couldn't possibly be a Buddhist. So, if your God is real, we're going to throw you off the building now. And if your God is real, then you won't get hurt. You won't die." So he said, "Yes, if my God is real, then I won't get any hurt." So then they threw him off the building.